Um, Another story from Tales of a Chocolate Smuggler called The Tower. The Tower. The Tower. Where are you? The Tower. The Tower. There it is. In the beginning, there was a beggar. He was never quite accustomed to his poverty. He was lost, always escaping. He had lived in solitude for a long, long time. He knew that one day he would die alone, and he was a little bit frightened. He met a juggler, and in her he saw a future, a thing he had not contemplated for himself. She was his dream, a vision of crystalline perfection. With her he saw magical things. In a long-ago forest not so far away, a raggedy man once walked. He was neither young nor old. He walked amongst the shaded groves and glades, shoulders slumped and eyes downcast. He was simple, dusty and empty, so empty. Except, of course, for his dreams and memories. All at once he came to a clearing. In the centre of the clearing stood a tower. At the very top of the tower was a window in which he saw a woman idly tossing some balls in the air. There was a wistful melancholy about her attitude which seemed so familiar to him that it did not pass unnoticed. As he watched, he saw her look forlornly to the ground, and as he followed her gaze, he saw a small, brightly coloured object on the ground. He guessed it to be one of the balls she was so distractedly tossing about. He also noted a particularly murky and ominous-looking moat which surrounded the tower. He leaned in the shade of a large tree and watched. The water in the moat was not still. A large and handsome knight appeared on a sleek charger. He saw the woman in the tower, and being a knight, he knew he had to rescue her. The beggar man saw her thrill at the sight of this would-be rescuer and clap her hands in glee. The knight rode up to the beggar man and imperiously handed him the reins. He commanded him to feed and tend to the horse while the knight was doing knightly things. The ragged man began to tell of the unstill water, but was silenced by the powerful knight. He shrugged his shoulders and watched. No sooner had the knight entered the moat than a commotion erupted. Dragons and moat monsters leapt from the water and devoured the knight in an instant. The water swirled and still, broken only by occasional ripples. The raggedy man looked from the moat to the woman, to the sleek horse, and smiled. He led the horse to a small clearing and secured it. A horse is worth a lot in some places. He returned to his vantage point under the tree and continued his study of the tower, and in particular the small brightly coloured ball at its base. As he stood watching, a succession of imperious knights interrupted his thoughts. They each in turn commanded the raggedy beggar man to tend to their fine steeds. They each in turn ignored his mumbling and gesturing about unstill waters, and they were each in turn devoured by the moat monsters and dragons. By the end of 3 days, the man had a handsome herd of horses, if 4 horses constitutes a herd. Suddenly he made up his mind. He stalked into the forest and trapped himself a fat wild boar. He carried the squealing pig under his arm and raced round to the furthest point of the moat. He dramatically held the pig aloft and hurled it into the moat. He returned breathlessly to where he started. He dived into the moat and struck gamely for the other side. As he swam, he heard the squealing of the pig suddenly cease. Moat monsters! Dragons! He made it to the other side and leapt from the water. He jubilantly waved his arms in the air. He jumped for joy and permitted himself a sly snigger at the imperious knights. Then he retrieved the small brightly coloured ball. The raggedy beggar man held the ball aloft and looked up to the window. The tower stretched to the heavens, a never-ending rock monolith. The windows were so high he couldn't even see the woman. There was no doorway. His shoulders slumped slightly. Still holding the ball, he absent-mindedly turned back towards the tree. The moat barred his path. The water swirled slightly and was still. He sat on the hard, smooth ground, tossing the ball in the air. There was a familiar melancholy about his attitude. A passing knight saw the tower, and the maiden, and the raggedy man. He saw that they were together, waved a friendly greeting, and rode into the forest. In a faraway place not so long ago, a strangely beautiful juggler once lived. She lived in a land which was ruled by a greedy and jealous man. He would have her as his own. Besotted by wealth and pleasure, she found herself trapped. She lost her powers and grew sad. She dreamt of a rescuer in shining armour atop a powerful charger. But she saw instead a raggedy man.